Matthew Evans, a wealthy man in his late 70s, sat alone in his silver Mercedes. He tapped his thumb impatiently against the steering wheel. The air conditioner hummed, barely keeping the Kentucky heat away. Retired and well off from a lifetime in finance, Matthew was used to things going his way. But that day, he found himself stranded with a flat tire, far from the comfort of his grand mansion on the outskirts of town. After a few failed attempts to reach roadside assistance, he sighed deeply and accepted that he'd have to wait. Just as frustration began to bubble up, he noticed a figure walking toward him down the road. A young boy, maybe 13 or 14, wearing a faded t-shirt and worn sneakers, approached with a determined look on his face. Matthew watched as the boy examined the car, then gave him a polite but confident nod. "Got a flat, sir?" the boy asked, his voice calm. "Yes, I do," Matthew replied, feeling an odd mix of relief and unease. "I was hoping for some help, but my phone's got no signal out here." The boy smiled a little. "I can help with that," he said, kneeling beside the tire without hesitation. "My grandpa taught me how to change a tire last summer. You got a spare?" Matthew pointed toward the trunk, watching as the boy opened it and began pulling out the tools. The boy worked quickly and confidently, his hands moving with a surety that Matthew impressed. As he stood there watching, Matthew felt a strange humility creeping in, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He thought of offering the boy something in return, but the young man was focused on the job, hardly looking up. After a few minutes, the boy stood and wiped his hands on his jeans. "All done," he said simply, giving a small, satisfied smile. Matthew reached into his wallet and pulled out a few bills, holding them out to the boy. "Here, take this. I really appreciate your help." But the boy stepped back, raising a hand politely. "Thank you, sir, but I don't need anything. Just happy to help." Matthew stood there, stunned, the money still in his hand. He watched as the boy turned and walked down the road again, his small figure growing distant. Alone once more, Matthew slipped the money back into his wallet and sat in the car, still thinking about the encounter. There was something about the boy, a quiet dignity, a confidence that didn't come from wealth or privilege, but from something deeper. That night, in his lavish home, Matthew couldn't stop thinking about him. He sat in his leather armchair, surrounded by shelves of books he rarely opened. The room was silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. His dinner, perfectly cooked steak and asparagus, sat untouched on the side table. He couldn't shake the image of the boy walking away with nothing but a smile. Matthew had met thousands of people in his lifetime. Business partners, employees, investors. Every interaction had always involved negotiation or expectation. There was always some kind of exchange. But this boy, this stranger, had helped him for no reason other than kindness. He leaned back and took a sip of scotch, replaying the moment in his head. The boy didn't look like someone who had much. The worn shoes, faded clothes, and dusty hands told a story. Yet he carried himself with an integrity that felt rare. The next morning, Matthew woke up with a strange determination. He couldn't explain it, but he needed to find the boy again. Maybe it was guilt or gratitude or simple curiosity, but something inside him felt unfinished. He drove back to the same stretch of road, scanning the horizon for any sign of the boy. Hours passed as he stopped at gas stations and small diners, asking if anyone had seen a boy matching the description. Most people shrugged, until an older woman behind the counter at a cafe spoke up. "Sounds like you're talking about Elijah," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "That boy's always helping folks. Lives with his mama over in Harlan." "Harlan," Matthew repeated, making a mental note. "Thank you." The town of Harlan was about an hour away, nestled in the foothills of the Appalachians. The drive was beautiful, but Matthew barely noticed. His mind was racing with questions. Who was this boy? What kind of family raised someone like that? When he arrived, the small town was peaceful, lined with modest homes and local shops. After asking a few more people, he was directed to a small house on the edge of town. The home was old but neat, with a sagging porch and flowers growing in chipped pots by the steps. Matthew parked his car and hesitated for a moment, unsure what he'd say. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. A woman in her early 40s answered. She looked tired but kind, her eyes sharp and curious. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Good morning," Matthew said, clearing his throat. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I believe I met your son yesterday, Elijah. He helped me fix a flat tire?" Her expression softened. "That sounds like my Elijah," she said with a small smile. "He's always helping people. Come in, you're welcome to wait. He's out back." Matthew stepped inside. The house was simple but clean. The furniture was old, yet well cared for. Family photos and drawings hung on the walls, giving the place a warmth his own mansion lacked. He followed her out to the backyard where Elijah was mending a wooden fence. He looked up, surprised. "Hey, mister," Elijah said, wiping his hands. "What are you doing here?" Matthew smiled, feeling oddly nervous. "I wanted to thank you again. You helped me when I really needed it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it." "It wasn't a big deal." "To me it was," Matthew said. "People don't usually help strangers without expecting something in return." Elisha tilted his head, puzzled. "If someone needs help and I can do it, why wouldn't I?" The simplicity of his answer struck Matthew deeply. He looked around at the yard, the patched fence, uneven grass, and the old swing set rusting in the corner. It was clear the family didn't have much, but they worked hard and made the most of what they had. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," Matthew said. "Your mother must be proud." Elijah grinned. "She works hard. I just try to help her out." Matthew thought of his own childhood, in a small home not much like this one. His parents had worked endlessly, teaching him the value of effort and integrity. Somewhere along the line, he had lost that lesson, chasing wealth and status instead. "I'd like to do something for you and your family," Matthew said finally. Elisha looked cautious. "We're okay, mister. We don't need anything." "It's not about need," Matthew said gently. "You helped me. Let me give something back." Before Elisha could reply, his mother called from the porch, "Elisha, come wash up before lunch." Then she looked at Matthew. "Would you like to join us? It's nothing fancy, but you're welcome." Matthew hesitated, but her sincerity left no room for refusal. "I'd like that," he said. Inside, the kitchen smelled of baked bread and roasted vegetables. The table was small, surrounded by mismatched chairs, but it was set with care. Matthew sat down, feeling oddly out of place in his crisp suit among the simple surroundings. Elijah washed up and joined them, his smile bright and easy. As they ate, Matthew listened to stories about Elijah's school, his friends, and his dream of becoming an engineer. His mother spoke proudly about the town and the people who looked out for one another. For the first time in years, Matthew felt real warmth, a sense of connection that money couldn't buy. After the meal, as they cleared the table, Matthew turned to her. "You've done a wonderful job raising him," he said. "He's got more heart than most people I know." She smiled, eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you. We've had our struggles, but we try to focus on what we have." Matthew nodded, his mind already forming plans. He didn't want to overstep, but he couldn't leave without doing something meaningful. The next morning, he made phone calls to colleagues, contractors, suppliers. Within days, a plan was underway. A week later, trucks began arriving at Elijah's home. Matthew stood outside, clipboard in hand, organizing the renovations. Elijah and his mother stood nearby in disbelief. "You didn't have to do this," she said, her voice trembling. "We've managed fine." Matthew looked at her kindly. "You've done more than manage, but you gave me something I didn't know I needed. Let me give back." Over the next few weeks, the small house transformed. The porch was rebuilt, the roof repaired, and the rusted swing set replaced with a new one. Inside, walls were painted, floors polished, and the kitchen updated. Elijah tried to help, but Matthew insisted he take a break. "Your job," he said with a smile, "is to be a kid for a while." Still, Elijah couldn't resist watching the workers. His curiosity caught the attention of a man named Joe, who let him measure wood planks and taught him a few tricks. Soon, Elijah was asking questions non-stop, fascinated by how everything came together. Matthew watched from a distance, pride swelling in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt he was part of something real. something that mattered. One evening, as the sun began to set, the renovation was complete. The family stood on the new porch, marveling at their renewed home. "This isn't just a house anymore. It's a home," Elijah's mother said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you." Matthew shook his head. "You've already had. You reminded me what life is supposed to be about: family, kindness, and purpose." The final day felt like a celebration. Neighbors came by with gifts, fresh bread, jars of jam, and potted flowers. Elijah's laughter filled the air as he ran around showing everyone the new swing set in the freshly painted rooms. Matthew leaned on the porch railing, watching with a quiet joy he hadn't felt in decades. Elijah's mother brought him a glass of iced tea. "You've done more than fix a house," she said softly. "You've given us hope."